trackies, welcome back to another video. Please remember to smash that subscribe button, hit the like button as well. That's how the video gets you the YouTube algorithm. Remember, hit the like button. Also, share the video if you care. I hope y'all care, so share. And yes, trackies, sound off in the comment section below. Bombshell. High profile track athlete switches allegiance to represent Turkey, as well as a plot twist for the high payout to go and represent Turkey. Now, track is it is being reported that the Nigerian sprinter, well, no longer Nigerian, Favour Ofili has switched allegiance as of the 31st of May to represent Turkey. Now, sources say, trackies, according to the reports, that she switched because of her frustration with Nigerian Athletics, the federation. Trackies, does that sound familiar to you? Yes, it does, because the Jamaican athletes, especially the field ones that have so far switched, have switched because of frustration due to the J3As. And track is it is the same story here for Favour Ofili on her switching her allegiance to now go and represent Turkey. So Turkey is willing to swoop in and rescue, these athletes from their federation. So it's not only Jamaica that will be losing high profile athletes. So far we've lost high profile field athletes. Well, Team Nigeria is losing high profile track athletes. Now, moving on to the rest of the story, track is it's stating that according to Favour Ofili, her frustration comes from her missing the Tokyo 2020 Olympics when they did not confirm, and by they I mean the Nigerian Athletics Federation did not confirm her number of doping control tests, and she missed competing in the 100 meters at the Paris Olympic Games after they did not enter her in the event. I vividly, trackies, remember these two, instances. Of course, as I said, I go live, during meetings, and of course, we discuss everything that is going on, during, the meeting, especially for, Nigerian athletes. It's pretty close to home, and we, support these athletes as well. So when they're going through struggles as well, we do highlight it, here on TXT Track Time, and it would be, on the main channel, because I see a few persons confused. This isn't the main channel. The main channel is still, over there, sitting down, not doing anything right now, unfortunately. But yeah, we do highlight these instances as well. So I vividly remember, this happening to her. Clearly, the channel didn't exist in 2020, one when, there was the Olympic Games in Tokyo. But, that was something that I vividly remember as well, her going through. And actually, it's the same thing that happened to the world record holder, Toby Amusan. And do you remember her frustration as well? Yep, Tracky. So these athletes are being lured away because, the federation really and truly doesn't know, what they have, or doesn't know how to treat these athletes. And you know what? It's, kind of highlighting how these federations take these athletes for granted, thinking that they'll always be there. So, they can do whatever and treat them however, thinking that, nothing will come out of it because, what, next time around there's a championships, they will be there ready to compete for their country. Not so anymore. These athletes are switching. They're tired. They're done with the games. Now, trackies, further reports say that according to, Favour Ofili, she didn't switch because of money. It wasn't just because of, the financial reasons. But again, trackies, athletes want security to know that when it comes to, competing at these global competitions, remember their contracts weigh heavily on whether or not they win medals at these global competitions, right? So if I'm not able to go because you are blundering left, right, and center, that, is a whole level of frustration, that these athletes will rather not deal with. And guess what? Turkey is willing to say, hey, not only will I make sure that you'll be good to compete at every global competition going forward, but also I'm willing to pay you a hefty amount of money. You know what I mean? So, I can't fault Favour Ofili, and I know a lot of Nigerian athletes as well that are going through it when it comes to, the anti-doping and whether and confirming actually, the number of tests that they do go through, right? So I'm honestly just wishing her all the best. It's definitely, sad for Nigerian athletics because their program is really growing. It's a program that I've been looking into, especially from a relay perspective, just like what we see South Africa on the male side now, getting into the medals. Nigeria, based on what I see happening, from an NCAA perspective, is looking like one of those countries that are going to start, featuring into especially the relays, if not individual right now, definitely relay. But if they're losing the athletes track is, what can I say? And as I mentioned, relays track is interesting because let's jump over to the other point that I want to talk about on this video, and that is apparently the money and the bonuses that will be paid out. Well, the bonuses, obviously you can't get those bonuses unless you medal, but that initial payout, according to reports, will not be given to the athletes until they register to compete for Turkey. Well, actually, sorry, compete for Turkey. So it's been reported that the figure has been, reported the 500,000 USD will not be over to the athletes until they actually compete for Turkey. So we know that the athletes will not be set to compete until roughly, around the Olympic Games. Some of them maybe 2027 if they get, that early release. But again, they will not be able to receive that money until they actually compete for Turkey. And apparently, it's not being led by this push is not being led by Turkey Athletics Federation, but actually the Turkish Sports Ministry. They're the ones that are really pushing this, and they're trying to establish themselves as a force, a powerful force for the next Olympic Games. And, that's interesting. And I can understand the frustration of many Jamaicans as well, because I've seen, a lot of you say, hey, so why couldn't they, spend this money and develop their own athletes? Well, I mean, look at this here. It's interesting that they want to become a powerhouse, by going in and swooping in and, taking ready-made athletes, to be their own. Definitely not something that sits, right with me. So I agree with a lot of y'all that, it seems a little underhanded, but when I think about the frustration from our athletes as well, what can I say? If we were treating our athletes the way they need to be treated, and don't get me wrong, Trackies, I'm not saying, because I see a lot of you thinking that I'm saying we should be paying them 500,000. I know we don't have that money, but the small things matter, the little things matter, the respect that these athletes are due matter. And for some time now, you sense that there's not much respect, from our administration to the athletes. The athletes seem scared, all the time to speak up about their struggles. I remember I did do the video, yesterday talking about, Lamara Distin and her struggles. And it's interesting because, when I do these videos, I do them off the top of my head. So, there's not much that I say have written down, but I did think that I missed an opportunity to highlight that, when these actual athletes do speak out, they're attacked. Lamar Distin was so scared last year when she spoke out that she had to come and retract, her statement when she said that, the J3As and the JOA, didn't allow her coach, to be there with her, and that's the reason why she didn't medal. She had to retract that statement. And of course, they threatened Daniel Thomas Dodd. They threatened her, right? And of course, they threatened Taekwondo Tracy. So this is what these athletes are going through. I mean, why would you be threatening your athletes, right? You should be trying to, do everything in your power, because think about it. They do everything else themselves. The athletes take care of themselves. All you have to do is make sure the I's and the are dotted and the T's are crossed. And it seems as though not even that they're willing to do so. You can't really fault these athletes for, jumping ship. As I said, especially our field events athletes, though it very much hurts. So yeah, in continuing, as I said, so the money will not be paid out until, they compete for Turkey. No, I do recall seeing a few people saying in the comment section, make sure y'all read that fine print. I'm hoping that the athletes, read the fine print to understand exactly what, is the requirement before they get that money. So I'm hoping so that they have a full understanding of, this before, and this didn't come, as a shock to them. Also, even if they're not getting this money track is, right off the bat, they're still getting that monthly stipend, to take care of themselves. And this is way more than anything that they had before. Again, let's go with Rajendra Campbell. He had, nothing working off. So this monthly stipend will work for them until, everything is sorted out, the transfer of allegiance goes through, and yeah, they'll be able to collect that money. So I wanted to touch on the relay aspect as well, Trackies, because apparently they're trying to create a 4 by 100 meter powerhouse team, right? And it's so funny because before I saw this, report, I was, speaking with someone, and I was, just throwing this out there and saying, hey, what is interesting is if we see, you know, our high profile athletes, switch and become a dominant force in the 4 by 100 meters, especially with the current, situation where they're not really getting any practice, and Jamaica is really falling on the back foot when it comes to relays in recent times. And I'm saying, what if they come, invest the money and, get the athletes to, practice as much as they need, and then guess what, those same athletes go out there and, defeat a team Jamaica. I mean, that would be crazy, right? So Chaki's Turkey is focusing heavily on the women's 4 by 100 meters. So Favour Ofili is already down to compete in that 4 by 100 meters, and she, is a really really fast athlete. She has personal best in the event of 10.93 seconds and 21.96 seconds. So she's an awesome leg, and throw three more athletes. We know that some Jamaicans are sitting around waiting to see what happens after trials. If they decide to go, merge them together with a Favour Ophelia, and that is a dominant team you have right there. Not something I want to see, right? So I'm hoping that everything goes the way it's supposed to go, next week, and our athletes, will be able to get what they want out of, qualifying for Team Jamaica. That being said, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. So Favour Ofili is now going to be representing Turkey, and the money that the athletes are set to receive, well, they will not receive it until they don actual Turkish outfits. Let me know your thoughts, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.